Y'all probably met our first speaker, Kerry Stevens. He comes to a lot of our events. And from his bio, Kerry's life is animated by his quest to create a community where all people can work, play, learn, and live to their full potential. He spent years strengthening people's commitment to environmental stewardship, healing the racial divide, addressing the root causes of poverty, and fighting for the full inclusion of LGBTQIA+ people. And you probably know that Kerry holds a post in the Travis County Democratic Party. Actually, he wears many hats. He serves as the vice chair of the county party, the chair of the Far Northwest Progressive Super Precinct, and the precinct chair for his own precinct on the west side of Leander. And in addition, he co-leads the Leander Democrats Together, which is a coalition of precinct chairs, kind of like we have around here, focused on electing Democrats to Leander City Council and the Leander ISD Board of Trustees. And those decisive victories for the three LISD school candidates, school board candidates, they were kind of the bright spot for us in this part of the county for the November election. So, good job getting those folks elected. And as I said, Kerry's a good friend of our club. He attends a lot of our events, and we endorsed Kerry in his successful bid to become a delegate to this year's Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where he got to help nominate Kamala Harris to be our presidential candidate. And that's very cool, I think. Outside of the political realm, Kerry is a published writer, which I just found out recently, and a retired engineering manager. And I also just found out recently that we worked on some of the same projects together a few years back. So anyway, please welcome our good friend, Kerry Stevens.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you all for welcoming me. That was a great introduction. I have been a friend here for y'all, and I certainly appreciate the endorsement that I got some months back when I went to the National Convention. I was telling somebody here earlier, if you want to hear what's going on at the convention, it's best to watch it on television. If you want to experience it, you got to be in the room, right? And so it was awfully loud in there, a lot of things going on. It's hard to hear it all. Can you all hear me just fine? Right now? Good. Good. So again, thank you for allowing me to come share with you my reflections on the election that just came through. And my focus is going to be on my super precinct that Jack shared with you. I'm the chair of the Far Northwest Progressives, which includes some of our folks right close to this super precinct. So it includes portions of Jonestown as well as Valente, kind of wraps around that side of the lake, Leander, and Cedar Park. So we're neighbors, okay? And so I just want to share with you a little bit about what's going on in my own super precinct as a form of insight to what may be happening here as well, okay? And so I want to start with the story. And so the morning after the election, I got up at 8:30 to go for a walk. It was a beautiful sunny morning, if you recall. It was a nice temperature. I stepped outside the door at 8:30, and my phone started to blow up with texts from my precinct chairs and other people who were just distraught. So I did my best to stop in the driveway and answer some of the questions and to try to offer some sense of encouragement, if you will, and just listening to the pain that people were expressing to me. One of the precinct chairs ended her text with, "What's the point?" I walked down the street just 100 more feet, and there was one of my members of the leadership team for my own precinct out in her driveway on the telephone, tears streaming down her face. So I walked up to her, she got off the phone, we embraced, we shared a few tears, and she started to pour out her heart about how terrible she was feeling. And I just want to take a moment to let you know that I'm very much aware of the pain that some of you in this room are feeling, some of the anger that you may have. We have people who are in fear of their marriage being dissolved by the acts of our courts or the administration. We have people in fear of their families being busted up because of deportation. We've got parents who are afraid about can they even stay in the state because they can no longer get the necessary health care for their children. So there's some very real issues. And that morning, those things were weighing on her heart, and she was crying, and I cried with her. Finished my walk, I came back an hour later. She was still in the driveway, still on the phone, and so I stopped to check in again with her to see how she's feeling an hour later. While I was waiting, I noticed beside me in this landscape was this beautiful butterfly. And I realized at that moment that that was a good metaphor for where we are today. Because I knew that just a few days before, that butterfly had been in the darkness of its chrysalis, entrapped, unsure of its future, not knowing what would become of it. But some days had gone by, some time had gone by, and there was transformation slowly occurring inside that chrysalis. To the point that butterfly came out of the darkness into the light, unfolded its wings, and enjoyed the butterfly that was destined to become that beautiful sunny morning. And I believe that's our future as well. So despite the darkness, the political darkness of the chrysalis that we're living in today, I want to share with you some reasons for hope. And that'll be the focus of most of my talk this evening. So let's start at the top of the ticket, if you will, what happened around the country. And I'm in front of you all's way, and I'll apologize for still here on this side. So we had some significant losses across the country, as you all well know. On the left-hand side of that chart is the Biden-Harris tickets, if you will. So the green bar is what the election looked like in 2020. The orange bar is what happened in 2024. And these are the total presidential votes. On the right-hand side of that pair is the Trump votes in his two elections, right? And so you can see the orange bar is smaller than the green bar for us. We lost 7.5 million votes. Whereas on the Trump bar, they went up by 2.2 million votes. Obviously, that's not a very good story. And if you look all around the country, every single state in the country shifted to the right in some form. And so you can tell those little arrows are pointing, there's red arrows that point to the right, and the length of the arrows, the size of the shift. If any on the charts, you see some blue arrows pointing to the left, but there are no blue arrows in that slide. And so this slide shows you where Texas is at in the list of red states. Okay, so some of you are thinking about moving to a different state. So I would just tell you, don't choose anyone on this list, okay? But if there's any good news on this list is that Texas is 20th on the list of the most red states. So there's 19 states in this country, if you can believe it, that are more red than Texas, right? But regardless, try not to move into any of these states here. You can see Texas is circled down there near the bottom of that slide. So what happened here? Well, we had a record registration in this state for this particular election. Okay, we had a historic 18.6 million people registered to vote. That is just absolutely great. However, the not so good news is that only 6 out of 10 actually went and cast their ballots, 61%. And so that was a 6 percentage point drop from where we were in 2020. Now, some of us have walked around here with our knuckles dragging the ground thinking, well, this is terrible to have that 6% drop, and it is. And you're going to see it's actually worse in some other places around the state. However, if you go back and look at the history of the Texas turnout, this is one of the peaks out of the last, 25, 30 years. Okay, and so it's not, so the 2020 is almost an anomaly, if you will, in terms of how high that particular turnout was. Now, if you look around the state, you can see some of those are colored red. Obviously, most of them are colored red. Some of those counties are colored blue. And so obviously where the big cities are is where the blue counties are. And unfortunately, the largest drops in turnout occurred in those blue counties where the cities were. And actually in the rural spaces, a lot of that turnout actually went up, right? So we had more Republicans turn out, and we had fewer Democrats turn out is the story there. But most of those counties remain blue, which is, of course, good news. So these are some of the bigger counties around Texas. We talk about the big 6. These are kind of the big 4. Again, the format is the same. The left-hand green bar in each of those pairs is 2020. The right-hand orange bar is 2024, the most recent election. And you can see in all cases the orange bars are smaller than the green bars. And so this is the percentage drop. Look at Dallas County, almost 16% drop in the percentage of Democratic votes. Harris County, our largest county by far, 12.5%. That's a huge drop. But if there's any good news in the size of these drops, it's Travis County. Travis County, the smallest of all the drops. I would argue, because I have some insider views, I guess, Travis County is one of the best organized of all these counties over here. And so I think that paid off in terms of the size of the drops that you see there. And so in terms of Travis turnout, we had 63% of our voters actually turned out. Now keep in mind, every time you see the word turnout, unless I say Democratic turnout, this is everybody, right, which includes the other party, okay, as well as any independents. And so 63% of our people turned out, which means that 37% of our people did not vote in this election in Travis County. And this is going to be hard to see from where you sit, but this is a map of Travis County of all the precincts. You can see they're colored some shades of green. And the darker the greens, the higher the turnout, okay? And you all know where you are. This is your super precinct, okay, which is made up of 5 precincts. And for those of you that love precinct numbers, there's your precinct numbers. And so if you notice, the bottom 3, 282, 281, 280 are a little bit darker green than 395 and 396. And so if you just look at the numbers, you had greater than a 70% turnout in your kind of a Lago Vista precincts and greater than a 60% turnout in the other 2 that are more rural spaces. So that's good news, but keep in mind that turnout includes the other party. So sometimes high turnout numbers are not so good, if you know what I mean. So for president and the Senate races, for the president race in terms of Travis County, 68% of our folks voted for Kamala Harris in Travis County. And we had 70% of people voted for Colin Allred. And so some people pointed at this and said, wow, that's great for Colin Allred, but what happened to Kamala Harris? Based on the analysis that I have done, and I've seen others do the same, the increase for Colin over Kamala is largely the crossovers for Republicans that could not stomach voting for Ted Cruz. Okay, because you don't see this pattern show up anyplace else in the analysis, but you do see it where there's few that cross over from the Republican side. And I'm showing you the Travis County numbers because we're all in Travis County. I'm going to drill down here a little bit later to get into Lago Vista area as well as my own super precinct. So Congressional District 10, so Teresa Boisseau represented us, and she was here, I think, right? At least once, more than once. So she had she had a multi-county race that she was in. It was like 18 counties or 16 counties. It was a huge number. Went all the way out almost to Houston, up past College Station. And unfortunately, it had almost all of western Travis County and none of the rest of Travis County. So she didn't win her race because most of the other counties are red counties. So she got 45% of the blue vote. And for Dwayne, who's sitting here, he's going to be one of your speakers. He had a 5-county race. All the other 4 counties are mostly rural counties and all red. And he had kind of the red portions of Travis County. Right, so unfortunately, Dwayne did not win his race either. You can see the percentages up there for Dwayne. Third Court of Appeals. Was Maggie Ellis ever out here?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Maggie Ellis, again, had this, she had this huge number of counties. She was running for Third Court of Appeals. She put on 20,000 miles just in the primary race. And I don't remember how many she get to win the race here for the actual general election. But she won her multi-county race, 51% overall to 49%. But here's the Travis votes, because she had a lot of these rural spaces. So Travis County pulled her across the finish line. Now she had all of Travis County, right, where some of these other folks just had portions of Travis County, kind of the red portions. So she got the benefit of some of the blue portions of Travis County, pulling in 69% of the vote, which helped push her over the finish line. Here's 2 other good news stories. So Prop A, if you recall, expanded access to affordable child care in Travis County. And we're only the 2nd county in the nation, according to Amy Brown, that's actually tried this, and now it's passed, right? And so I'm awfully excited by that. So we should take a lot of pride in the fact that this has happened now in our own community, and we are showing some innovation. We'll hopefully be leading the nation in this way of trying to provide access to more affordable child care for those that don't have access to it today. And then here's one that you might look at and think, well, what does the City Council of Austin got to do with me? I'm over here on the other side of the lake, and they don't even know where I live. Well, the reason why this is important, this is District 6 for the Austin City Council. Part of my super precinct is in District 6 for Austin City Council. Okay, so the southern end of it is in this district. So this district previously had been represented by someone who has an R beside her name. These are nonpartisan races, but she was clearly a Republican and backed by Republicans. Her name is Mackenzie Kelly. And so Crystal Lane is a newcomer to this arena. She was a Democrat. She was endorsed by the Travis County Democratic Party and the Waynesville County Democratic Party because she the city council district includes Winston County. And she worked her butt off, and folks in our super precinct and other places worked their butts off to get her elected. So she unseated a Republican in the suburbs. Okay? That's why it's on the chart. Now, this is what it looks like in Lago Vista. So I said Lago Vista in quotes, representation. What I want to do is to show you a little bit of a change over time. And as you probably recall, just a couple years back, we had a redistricting effort. And so all the districts, all the precincts changed. And so it's hard to do an apples-to-apples comparison. So I had to find a place where I could do an apples-to-apples comparison. And so I looked at two precincts that I could compare to the previous years. And that's precincts 280 and 281, the small print down at the bottom of your slide. And so in 2024, 33% of those folks, which is the bulk of Lago Vista proper, voted for Kamala Harris. Okay, so that's where we were this year. But if you go back and look at that same area in the previous years, 2020, you were 33%. 2016, you were 28%. What do you see there in terms of trends? Right? You're improving. Right? That's a huge drop, a huge increase, I should say, from 2016 till today. And you also should take some pride in the fact, remember that slide I showed you where Texas shifted red, the whole country shifted red, everybody got more red? You didn't get more red.
Yeah.
Okay, so take some pride in that as well. And thank you for those who have been working in that area. So I want to show you now, to give you a sense of what the future might look like by comparing this to another suburb, and that's my own, okay? Because we're not that much different in terms of our history. When I first moved here, there was 1,700 people in Leander. Today there's over 80,000, 40 years later, right? So I don't know what this place is going to look like 40 years from now, but it is growing. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. So in 2016, there's two precincts in the Leander area, and I'm the chair of one of those. The combination of those two were 33% for Clinton. You remember that other slide where y'all were today? 33%. Okay, but then look what happened. We jumped up to 48% in the 2020 race, and then 2024 race, we increased to 49%. So we're continuing to grow slowly. And we grew so much that my own precinct came within 5 votes of flipping for Kamala Harris.
Wow.
We have always been red since the beginning. Always. Okay? 5 votes short of flipping. Okay? So we're motivated, right? We see the change happening here. You might ask, well, what happened from 2016 to 2020? Was that Kerry Stevens and all his workers out there doing their... Well, I'd like to say yes, but that would not be true because I wasn't active in that time period in this arena. But here's what did happen. We opened up one great big brand new neighborhood called Treviso. And the neighborhood that I live in today, Crystal Falls, is continuing to grow and expand. And I just wonder, is anything like that happening out here? Yeah. It is. So you've got a big neighborhood out to the left, Lakeside at Tessera. You also have the Hollows, which is continuing to grow. And I just wonder if we get active out there and it's fully fleshed out, what's going to happen here politically? I think you've got a great opportunity here going forward. Now, this is an eye chart. Don't try to read it. And I probably should take some time to bring something different here. But I want to switch now and talk about the school board. So Jack mentioned the school board as being a bright spot in our area out here. I would say it was a bright spot across the county, right? As well as in Williamson County. So I just want to tell you that story by showing you this slide. This is place 3, place 4, place 5 for the Leander School Board, okay? And so the way it works, you can see the different people who are running in each one of those places, the number of votes they got across there. So in the green circle, the percentage of votes they got, so the first one, place 3, Nkosi Nelson, he's a newcomer. He had never run in a race for anything in his life. But he did a great job. He didn't run as a newcomer, and he beat the competition by 2.5 percentage points. Place 4, you can see, was 10 percentage points almost. Place 5, I can't do the math in here, but it looks like 10 or 11 percentage points. Okay, that's huge. Okay, that's huge. But what's even more important is over here on the right-hand side, those next 2 boxes or columns, reflect the Travis County versus the Williamson County percentages. Now, it may be a shock to some of you, but in these local races, Williamson County has always been more blue. And so if you're running for city council, for example, in Leander, they just ignored my precinct, people running. They were a lost cause. I didn't know it until the time we were called, ignore those people up on the hill. They're just a bunch of Republicans. So they didn't even bother to canvass in our area until we got engaged and started working that area and showed them that we can make a difference. So Williamson County always outperformed Travis County in these local elections. So if you can look over here on the right-hand side, that's the Travis County, left-hand blue circles is Williamson County. Across the board, Travis County outperformed Williamson County for the first time. Now, I'm not standing up here to diss Williamson County. These are my friends, we're all on the same team. I'm up here to show you what it looks like when people work together to make a difference in the community. And so that's what it looks like here for those school board races. And so if you look at each one of those places, one by one here, place 3, 52% of the people voted for blue. This is what it breaks down by each one of the precincts in my super precinct. Now, I don't expect you to read all these numbers, but I do want you to focus on the bottom 3 where it says historically red. So 2 out of those 3 went blue for this race, okay? The one that's in red right now is Jonestown and Valente, okay? That's precinct 392, and Jim Gallagher sits in here today. He happens to be precinct chair for the other half of the Jonestown area here in Lago Vista, in this super precinct. The next race, it was a 3-way race, and Anna won with 50% of the race, 50% of the vote. But look here, all 3 of these precincts now went blue. So again, 2 of them are the west side of Leander, one of those is this rural space against on kind of the other side of the lake as it wraps around the east side of the lake from here. We're neighbors. We are literally neighbors. 394 and 392 touch y'all's precincts. And place 5, 59% of the vote, all 3 again of those red precincts went blue for these races. Now they didn't go for the top of the ticket, right? But they made significant progress at the top of the ticket, but they went blue here for the bottom of the ticket, and this is where our focus was when we went off and did our canvassing. So, how did we do this? Again, this is kind of an eye test, but that top purple set of boxes represents my super precinct, Far Northwest Progressives, FNP. So we did a lot of things. We did canvassing, and so if you look at that column called people, we touched almost 4,000 people in some form with our canvassing. So it's either door knocking or that was phone calling. We sent over 4,000 texts. We had meet and greets where 75 people came to our meet and greets. And then we did poll greeting where we went out to the polls to talk to people about these nonpartisan candidates and let them know who were the D's and who were the R's and who they should vote for. We touched nearly 3,000 people. It's hard to get the exact number down when you're talking to all those people in all these different polling locations. So we were multiple polling locations. But we weren't the only ones doing that. So we have 2 precincts here in North Shore Democrats that are part of this school district. So Jim Gallagher is one of the precinct chairs for 395. And so there's almost 450 people touched in some form here from the North Shore Democrats. We also passed out signs. We had almost 500 signs that people put in their yards, which is a work record for us, okay? And guess what? Anytime you're going to make change in a community, you need to do it together. We're always stronger together. So there's another super precinct down on the other side of the lake, opposite y'all, down in the Steiner Ranch area, right? And they're called the 4 Points Democrats, is the name of their club as well as their super precinct. They did almost exactly the same things as you see here in the purple slide. So we all work together in one giant team, same lit, same message, same everything, knocking on all these doors, and that was the magic to get those wins that I showed you on those other pages. So I offer that to you as evidence that organizing works. Coming together works, right? And so I offer that up to you as a bit of hope for the future here in this area. However, some of you are probably still feeling kind of down, right? And there was one gentleman here I was talking to when I came in. He said, I haven't turned on the news since November the 7th. So he apparently watched it on the 6th. I had enough. And so, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of people here that have a lot of emotions, and I want to affirm all those things that you may be feeling for good reasons, okay? But we can't live there, folks. We cannot live in this state of fear or this state of outrage. because it has negative consequences. Number one, it triggers this sense of fight or flight in our brain, right? And when you got that trigger turned on, that's how your body is organized and how your brain is working. You're going to do one of those two things. You got to be on the top of your game, and the rest of the bodily functions, if you will, your brain functions aren't necessarily working to their full potential because you're ready to jump on this fight or flight thing. The second thing is it produces stress, and we know what stress does to us. So we got to find a pathway out of this situation that we are in today. And so I believe that these local wins that I showed you moments ago are signs of hope. They are points of light in the darkness of despair that we may be feeling. And I also believe that just like the chrysalis of the butterfly, our political chrysalis is changing slowly. I've just shown you some evidence through these local wins. And I believe that that is going to lead us out of the darkness of uncertainty. You've heard this famous quote by Martin Luther King. He says, "We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." A lot of times that quote is taken out of the context of his life's purpose. And we think that, well, this is just going to happen automatically as a function of time. And no, that's not what his intention was. That was not what his life was about. And so former Attorney General Eric Holder added to that and did so in a very good way, I think. He says, yes, all that's true. It does bend towards justice, but because people work together to pull it towards justice. So what I would like to do next is to offer you several ways and reasons and opportunities to bend the moral arc of the universe towards justice. I want to offer to you three different levels of that. What can be happening and what is happening on the national level, what can be happening locally, and what can be happening personally. So on the national level, first of all, and some of you might know this, you've been keeping up with the news, except for the guy that hasn't watched the news since the 7th of November. Where are you at here? There you go, sorry. So there's an army of lawyers that are geared up for this fight, okay, that we have in front of us. You all have heard all the things that Trump has threatened to do on day one. Well, the odds of all those things happening are pretty slim, but there's a whole bunch of things he's threatened to do on day one. For the past year or more, there are literally hundreds of lawyers who have been preparing for this day because they know what happened. They know what he's going to do because he's done it in 2016. And we know what he's been threatening to do. So they have briefs already written. They have people who have standing, right, that makes the suit have merit. They already have found people with standing given the issues that he's going to address, ready to go so that on day one when he's filing his things, they can come right behind with their lawsuits. Okay? So the ACLU is one of those, the American Civil Liberties Union. There's another group of lawyers called the Democratic Attorneys General Association. These are the blue states that are working together. And there's many others besides these, but there are literally hundreds, 200 of them at ACLU and about 200, I think, in that other institution. And so somebody may say, well, but they're lawsuits. Again, what good is that going to do? Well, the ACLU had an 85% win record in the last Trump administration. Okay? I just lifted up three of them. They were successful in stopping the separation of infants from the detained parents. They were successful in stopping that citizenship question from getting onto the census, the census. And you might recall there was a Muslim ban. Remember how many times he tried the Muslim ban?
Yeah.
How many?
Maybe like a dozen, something like that.
Maybe it felt like it was 3.
Yeah.
The ACLU stopped them twice, right? And then made significant restrictions on the last one that finally got implemented. Right? And so they made a big difference and said, yeah, but all the judges are all been appointed by the Republicans. Well, guess what? That's not true. Okay, so there's a pie chart that shows you that 65% of the federal appointed judges have been appointed either by Obama or by Biden. Okay, so our chances are good. Our odds are good. So I want to offer you some hope that we have some people out there ready to fight for us at the national level. We also have the midterms coming up. I've heard so many people say, I don't think I can stand 4 more years of this. Well, guess what? You don't have to stand 4 more years because the midterms are coming up in 2 years. Okay? So we have a significant chance to make a difference in the House of Representatives. Because if we get together to organize, like I showed you earlier on those slides for the local elections, but we do this now on the national level, or we help other states, we do it from remotely, if you will, to get more Democrats elected at the U.S. House, we can flip the House back, okay? Because they have a very slim margin today. It's in the single digits. It's not that hard. And look what happened in 2018. So remember, Trump was in office in 2016, then we had the midterms. 2018, we had a net gain of 40 seats for the Democrats in the House. So what's Trump going to do when he gets in office? Trump's going to do what he always does, and that's going to be overreach. He's going to do all these aggressive things. Now, some of you may disagree with this point, but not all of his voters are misogynists, racist, homophobes. A whole bunch of these people are just low information voters that just want to get back to the 2019 economy, or they just want to shake things up because somehow they just feel like it's stagnated. But when he starts overreaching and some of these policies he implements that you and I know are going to hurt them, right, and they wake up to some of that stuff, he's not going to be particularly popular, I don't think, when the midterms come around. So I have hope that we have a chance of flipping the House back, and that's going to put a wall up for a lot of the things that he might choose to do. And lastly, we still have the opportunity for mass protests, right? You might recognize that one down at the bottom. If you can, anybody recognize what that's from?
Women's March.
That's the Women's March, that's right. So that still works. Historically, 2 out of every 3 mass marches and mass movements accomplish at least portions of their objectives. Okay? Now, it's a little bit less when you back and study the research for authoritarian regimes, but some of them are still successful. And so I offer that up to you as well as an option that we have available to us. Now, what about locally? So remember, trying to pull that arc, moral arc of the universe toward justice. What can we do locally? So first of all, remember those groups that are out fighting, the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and some of these other places? Those are all local too. Those are also working in Texas and here in our own community. So you can join those groups. You can go down and support them and volunteer in various ways, and they would love to have you there. So these are places that you can get engaged today, maybe not today, but Monday. We also have learned from our election results that we did not do a good job reaching out to the young folks, okay? And I look around this room, and there's a lot of people who kind of look like me, most of the gray hair. So we need to do a better job of reaching to our younger folks, right? And I know there's some people here in the room. I think Marie's got a group of younger folks that she keeps fired up. And I think as a community right here, you can get your heads together and figure out what can we do to reach the younger folks in this community, the families, for example. And I think if we do that across the county, and we do plan to do that across the county as well, that we can make a big difference if we form relationships with a different community than the ones we have sitting in this room. We also have the opportunity with this legislative session that starts in January to block a lot of this harmful stuff that's already being threatened from our Republican leadership here in the state. So the Travis County Democratic Party will be putting out what I would call action alerts that says this ugly legislation is going to come before a committee on such a date, such a time. We need you to come down to testify. And there's different ways of doing that. I'm not here to educate you in all that today, but I'm happy to if you have a desire later on. But the goal here is when that action order comes out that you take that action. Now, some of these challenges at the state capitol, some of the answers or not the answers, the conclusion is foregone, right? We kind of know what it is because this is something that maybe our governor has put his thumbprint on it and there's no way around it. But there's a whole bunch of other things like this where there's people who are persuadable, and they're persuadable by stories. You may have a Republican who's on the fence, and if you are down there to testify in a room in front of him or her, you could make a difference. And I know that to be the case. I've talked to people who have had that happen. So I encourage you to be tuned in to that when those opportunities come. And somebody was complaining the other day. They said, well, all this stuff just happens off, I get a notice and I got to do that tomorrow at 12 o'clock and I don't have time. Well, unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast. Those committee things don't get planned until the day before half the time. Sometimes you get a 48-hour notice, maybe a 72-hour notice. And so the reason why it looks like it's chaotic is because it is chaotic. So just know the people in the background aren't causing the chaos. It's just the way the capitals run, the way those things get put on the agendas. So you've got to be responsive if you want to get involved there. We also have the opportunity to analyze our own results. So I've been doing this in my own super precinct. You saw some of the slides there earlier. I've got lots more from my own super precinct. You can do the same thing here. Your party leaders can do the same thing. We're doing that at the county level to find out who voted, who didn't vote, why didn't they vote. Where are the Republicans, where are the Democrats that just didn't show up and do some of that ID work, especially in these places where you have growth going on and some of these newer developments. And so that's an opportunity for us as well. And the last thing on this particular list is, you know what? We don't have to rely on people like our county commissioners here to run for office. You could do it too. Everyone in this room has an opportunity to run for a particular commission or a city office or the county office, and maybe you're going to share with us opportunities like this where people can get involved at the county level. I just learned from Jack 2 days ago, or no, from Mike, that the ESD 1 or 2 that services this area needs somebody to serve on their board, right? So these are all opportunities for you to make a difference in your own community. But this is my favorite one to serve locally. This is about community service. I feel like in the past, our party did a better job of actually addressing local community issues and trying to make a difference in people's lives. And I think we can get back to that. And I think there's a lot of benefits if we did get back to that. So one, it helps people in need, and it strengthens the community. And was the expression, a rising tide floats all boats, right? And so we can make a difference here in our own community or in our county if we choose to participate in community service. Also, we know about all the things that Trump's threatening to do, and this is likely going to affect some of the organizations that are serving some of the people that need services today. And so we can fill in those gaps when that happens. We just got to keep our eyes and ears open to look for those opportunities. It also gives us the opportunity as a party to walk the talk. So oftentimes I think we stand up and say, well, we care about all people, and we believe in this, and we believe in that, but it's one thing to believe, it's another thing to do. And so this is an opportunity to do, right, to walk the talk as a party, to demonstrate that we actually will do the things that we profess to believe in. We also learned from this election that we have been disconnected or lost connection from our working class folks across the country, and I think it's probably true here as well. And so if we are serving our community in the way that folks who are being served are part of the working class, this is an opportunity for the party to connect with the working class, especially if we do it as Democrats. Now, I'm not professing to go down there just to show off and wear a Democrat t-shirt and say, look at us, that's not my message. But my message is that if you wear your t-shirt and go down as a club while you're doing good work, it's a win-win, okay? And can help us in our next election. And the last opportunity here is on a personal level. So I just want to point out that self-care is very, very critical during these times of high stress, which we are experiencing today. And so part of the reason why he stopped listening to the news, this gentleman back here, is for self-care. Right? He couldn't deal with it anymore, right? And so I want to offer you an opportunity that this is not the time to withdraw, to stay in your house, or just watch MSNBC all day long, right? This is where you want to spend more time with the people that you love, and spend right here with your community, and less time on social media where there's so much negativity and conspiracies and all this other stuff happening today. If you currently practice some sort of spiritual practices, I would encourage you to continue with those things and not withdraw at this point in time, because that's a source of hope for a lot of people. And we can engage in physical activity as well as spending time in nature, and both of these things trigger all these good chemicals in the brain to lift your spirits. Okay, and so that's been proven to happen, not just Kerry's anecdotal evidence. And then, like I said before, serving others. So this has a second benefit of helping us feel good about ourselves when we're helping other people, right? And it's one of the most miraculous things you can do if you're down, is to go out and help somebody else. And it can really turn around your perspective. And the last thing on this list, and just before as I approach the end of my talk, is I just encourage you to focus on the things that you can change, and don't focus on the things that you can't change. And I want to end with this story that you all have heard before, and that is there was a man walking along the beach, and the beach was littered with starfish that had been stranded as the tide went out, and they all were dying on the beach, stranded. And as he walked along amidst these dying starfish, he encountered a woman who was picking a starfish up and throwing it back in the water. And he says, ma'am, why are you doing that? You know you can't save all these starfish. And she says, I know, sir. She picked up another one and threw it in the water, but I saved that one.
Good.
So, blessings on your journey from the darkness to light. Thank you very much for inviting me to see it this afternoon.
Great talk. Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. That was inspiring.